Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Junia Doan. Thank you for joining us today. My guest is Jerry O'Donnell. Jerry is the General Manager of ESPN 100.9 FM, the only all-sports radio station in the Great Lakes Bay region. He is also the public address announcer of the Great Lakes Loons. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
So glad you are here, but I'm clueless. What does the general manager of a radio station that's all sports do? What are your responsibilities?
Well, it depends on the radio station. In my case, I spend a lot of time bringing together all aspects of the radio station, from working with the sales department to working with the engineer to the IT department to the talent, and also keeping in touch with many of our network partners like ESPN and Michigan State and the Pistons, keeping up network relations. But as a general manager at this particular radio station, my job requires me to do marketing plans and work with clients, learning what their needs are, and finding ways for them to associate with the products on my radio station in ways that benefits their business. And I probably spend a lot more time writing and producing than most general managers at most radio stations do. But that's what the job requires, so that's where I go.
So a marketing plan, what exactly does that cover?
A client may have a need in their business to communicate certain important things that they feel are lacking or they want to exploit, and I find ways of taking their way of describing their company and write copy that describes their company to the listeners that would entice them to use the client's services. So we're number one in this category. Well, how do we tell that to the listener? How do we get the listener to respond to the commercial?
I see. So they are paying you to write it and for the time on the air?
Yes.
I see.
So I spend a lot of time writing. That's not normal for a general manager. It's not typical, but that's the team that we have put together at ESPN. That's what was needed, so that's where I stepped in. And the majority of my job is spent in the production studio.
And where did you learn to write so well that it pleases all these wonderful clients?
It's the school of hard knocks. I wrote a lot when I was a child. I enjoyed writing when I was in college, and when you're a broadcast generalist, when you do a little bit of everything, writing is one of the things you have to do. I love spell check on the computer, though. It's the best thing ever invented, because I still don't spell well, but my computer does, fortunately.
What kind of advertisers prefer a sports event to advertise their products?
Typically, it follows the listener. It's all about the listener, and our listeners tend to be 35 to 55-year-old males. They tend to be a little bit more educated, with a little bit more disposable income, and a little bit more of ability to spend that money the way they want rather than the way they have to. So sports is a guy's club in many ways. That doesn't mean we don't have female listeners. It doesn't mean we don't welcome the female listeners. But by and large, the people who are listening to our play-by-play or talk products are men 35, 55.
So it's products for men or aspirated? What kind of products would be advertised, or services?
Sure. Insurance is a big category for us.
That's surprising.
Medical care is a big category for us.
That's another surprise,
And it's if you think about what men, it goes beyond beer and fertilizer. I mean, men make a lot of the decisions in the household day to day, and those are the products that we tend to advertise for them.
Does the advertising change depending on the game or the
No,
sport?
really, what it does change is if you have a business person, let's say a person who runs his own company who's a Central Michigan grad, he'll want to be associated with a Central Michigan product. Mm-hmm. Or if it's a Michigan State alum or somebody who follows the Pistons closely, sometimes they want to associate with that brand, and we try to find ways of making those relationships work.
What list of sports and university sports do you follow in this area?
Well, we have We have Northwood, Saginaw Valley State University, CMU, and MSU coaches programs. We have play-by-play for both MSU and SVSU. Those are the collegiate programs. We have, in professional sports, we have NFL products. We have the Pistons, as well as the Great Lakes Loons. So, there's something for everybody.
Really? I am surprised at the breadth.
It's a lot
Typical
of work
woman.
to keep it juggled.
Yes.
And it's a lot of work to keep it, but that's the fun part. That's the challenge.
Do these people get together and integrate their calendars so they don't have competing events the same day?
I think to a degree everybody knows that football is a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night thing, and high school basketball, which we also have products, is a Friday night thing, or football is a Friday night thing, and basketball has its time. But I don't know that they integrate together, but there are times when we're really challenged as to which product we want to put on the air.
So if you had an intern, I don't know if you do, that come and
We do.
And what would they be doing? What would they be learning?
I try to get interns involved in a little bit of everything. I try to send them out on, at least during their time with us, a couple of sales calls with our salespeople. They spend a lot of time in the studio learning how to work the equipment, because that's the most daunting task.
Yes.
We also like to put them to the task of researching, helping our afternoon host write and produce some of his products, helping him write questions of the day, that sort of thing, being involved in social media. We try to get them also involved on the air if at all possible, if they're willing to, if they have an interest in it. And I tell our interns that I will never put you in a position where we'll give you anything but a high probability of success. So, because in this business, a lot of times it's your confidence that determines your abilities as much as anything else. If you appear confident on the air, that's the first step. Then you have to actually say competent things.
That's really interesting. The competence creates talent, in a sense, or it creates efficacy.
In many ways, because if you're not constantly thinking about the fact that you're in front of an audience, you get a chance to relax and actually be yourself.
Oh, interesting. Does voice matter or pace matter?
Sure. But that's really more the instrument, and there are a lot of people who are blessed with good voices who aren't necessarily good at using them. And there are people who are great communicators, but their voice may not be that pleasant. So it's a combination of things.
What makes for a pleasant voice?
I don't know. I just know it when I hear it. I've met people with interesting voices, and I have an ear for it because that's what I do.
Yes.
And there are a handful of people that I've run into over the years who I think, maybe they should be in broadcasting. They should be getting a job as a cartoon character voice. It's fun to listen to voices and to think what they might be able to do with them.
You think it's range of tones and syncopation?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I know that.
Interesting.
I know that in my work. Give you an example.
Please.
The average person that I bring into the studio reads at a rate of 85 words per 30-second commercial.
That's fast, isn't it?
That's
slow.
That's moderate.
Okay.
I have somebody on my staff who's from Georgia, and I write for him at 75 to 80 words. I have other people working for me who are from Texas, and I have them reading 80 to 85 words. So, and that's without them being unable to pronounce the whole thing. I tend to write me at 95 to 100 because I have a very quick staccato rhythm to my voice. Just one of those things that I've developed over the years. So you talked about syncopation. That's one of the things I think about when I'm reading, is the syncopated, trying to get that iambic iambic beat.
Interesting. It's very interesting to me. I'm from the East, and I tend to talk a little bit faster. And I always think it's because I have so much to say.
That too.
I want this person to hear in a very short time because
It's
I may be leaving.
It's about being efficient with the time, sure. That's why, in my house, many times there are 2 or 3 people talking at once because we got to exchange the information. There's only so much time.
Yeah. How well do people listen?
That's another thing. I find that people can listen to a lot more words, probably a lot faster than people can talk. But yeah, the other thing is, do you put the emphasis on the right word to get your point across?
Does it have to be a noun?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm somewhat curious about that now that we're talking about radio and voices and announcing
Sometimes
for the
it's
loons.
the pace, sometimes it's the slowing down, sometimes it's the negative space of taking a pause to make your point. It's rather, yeah, it's kind of like music.
When you do the announcing part for the loons, do you break for many seconds? What's the maximum amount of seconds you can break and not say anything before people get anxious?
There's a lot of time in between pitches where I don't say anything at all. But I try to stay on my usual. I maybe slow it down a little bit when I'm doing, because it's a very formal thing. You're talking in front of 5,000 people, so you have to speak larger, and you have to speak more formally than you would if it's just a one-on-one conversation. And of course, a lot of it's scripted, so you want to make sure that you say everything precisely in your prompter. I actually have a prompter that I use for many of the reads. But then there are times when the bases are loaded when you just go crazy. It's just, you talk loud and fast. You try to match the energy of the audience, or you try to bring the energy you want from them to the game. Because
how do you do that? That's interesting.
if it's a dramatic moment, you need to play dramatic.
Your voice then gets
Absolutely,
dramatic.
absolutely. Maybe it gets higher, maybe it gets growly, maybe, there are certain
You
tricks
feel
that I
the
do.
tension and involvement,
Absolutely.
and yes,
Absolutely.
this really
I
matters.
try to push the crowd. I want them to be the 10th man on the field.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And people respond, I'm sure.
They do. It's a lot of fun. There's a reason we always have the windows open. We want to feel that crowd noise coming back to us. We want to know if they're chanting along. We want to know if they're clapping along with us. If we say Deo and they say Deo, we're doing our job right.
And can you tell when they're sort of fading
There
from
are
you?
there are crowds that are quieter. Yeah. And I really don't know. Is it weather? Is it the day of the week? Is it the opponent? I don't know. But they always say you've been a lovely audience. Some audiences are lovelier than others. Some audiences give you more back than others.
So what does formal mean when you said you talk more formally when you're announcing for the loons?
Well, the pronunciation has to be spot on. I feel like there's a lot of times in one-on-one speech when we just run through the word really quick. But we wouldn't do that on the public address. Announcer would say, we wouldn't run through the words too quickly. We would be more formal in our speech rather than the casual.
So you hear more the consonants?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But it's also trying not to slur if that's the right word. You try to make sure that you're speaking more from the diaphragm, and that you're opening up your mouth like the same thing they teach singers to. Open up and announce and pronunciate and use the voice, use the diaphragm, project more.
I wonder if you get used to a different voice. My family's from Oklahoma, pioneer family, and the old Oklahomans, they diphthong in the way they talk. And when I would be out there, I would sort of get lost in the word because they were doing a diphthong.
Right.
And I had to remind myself to get back and listen to the content
Right.
instead of disappearing into what is a
Right.
regionalism.
Of course, in Michigan, we're kind of, all of us in that Midwest accent, where lots of broadcasters like to be because it's the most universally recognized, understood, accepted dialect in the United States. So, you can be Midwest and they can put you in the middle of Texas and nobody recognizes that you're not from that town until you mispronounce the name of the towns.
I think the lower registers calm people. And I was thinking, why are men mostly the announcers of sports events? Are
That's a
there
good
many
question.
women? I don't
There are a few. There are very few though.
Yeah.
And it tends to be the non-big four sports that have female broadcasters. But it seems many of the networks are incorporating women in roles that go beyond here's the good-looking sideline reporter who's going to tell us what we already know, that he's injured. They're doing analysis now. ESPN's doing a great job with a handful of very talented females who are giving you analysis and getting in the face of sports figures and asking them real tough, biting journalistic questions.
Now, do they have voices that you find interesting and arresting?
I think so. I believe so. None of them have any voices that I wouldn't consider to be really good,
Right.
really professional.
Interesting. So at home, when you want your boys' attention, when you want the kids' attention,
I use my dad voice. Yeah.
what's a dad voice
Well,
sound like?
you know, it's not like now coming to the dinner table,
Right.
the firstborn son. It's not like that, but
It would get their attention.
the same exercises that you have to do to speak loud at Dow Diamond, you have to use to yell at your kids.
And what are those exercises?
Just talking loud.
Loud. Loud and authoritative.
Sure.
Oh, interesting. I've always, well, I like in men very low voices. Few have it. And I think it is because it's so rare. You know, it's like seeing a beautiful gem or a beautiful color. It's just rare. But it's very, it's just appealing to me. I've never really understood why. But maybe it's just kind of rare. So anyway, back to the radio station.
Sure.
I don't know how people make money doing that. Is it all off advertising?
Absolutely. It's a lot of hard work, but you know, you have to find the compelling nature of what your radio station is about. And in our case, it's sports, and sports are so universally accepted and embraced by by the people in America that that part's an easier sell.
Yes.
And then to show them the benefit, who are the listeners who are consuming it, and we have a lot of good success stories behind what we do at ESPN.
You mean you can document that you advertise this and that happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've had clients that in their first week of advertising have had tremendous results. Your results may vary. It all depends on being there at the right time and with the right message. But it's like Henry Ford said, I believe in luck, and the harder I work, the luckier I am. So the more you work that advertising, the better off you'll be.
You seem like a very hard worker. Are you?
I guess. I probably enjoy my job too much.
What does that mean?
It takes me too many hours away from the family many times. They're very accepting, thankfully,
Right.
but I get to have 5,000 of my favorite people over on a given night in the bowl, and there's baseball being played, and it's going to be interrupted at times by entertainment. So it's a blast.
You know, as I've thought about, like you are really blessed because you've been able to combine interest with success and opportunity. And when you do that, you say it's way too much time, but I hear also that's a great joy.
I never feel like I'm working.
Yes.
You know, I never. There are a lot of times when I feel like this is what I was designed to do. And to be honest with you, I did not grow up watching baseball. My baseball education started when my son got into t-ball. I'd watched baseball. You know, I was a passive Tigers fan and would watch a couple of World Series games, but I didn't grow up playing, baseball, Little League. I didn't grow up playing those games. So much of my baseball education has occurred at Dow Diamond. However, I understand that it is the nation's pastime, and the pace of the game is beautiful. And the more you watch, the more beautiful it becomes, and the more you know about the nuances of base running, the nuances of covering the base. The balls that are missed by an inch, miss the fielder's glove by an inch. It's all a game of inches. And when you watch the game over time, the more you know, the more beautiful it becomes.
How do you learn it, though?
I work with a lot of really smart baseball people, and I ask a lot of questions.
Well, how about if you're a kid or a wife or a guy going to the first game? How do you learn those nuances?
You have to sit with somebody it's helpful to sit and watch with someone who's knowledgeable about the game. There's so much it's so much history behind it.
What do you think appeals to men about sports? That passion.
I think guys like to live vicariously.
Yeah.
Through people who can do things that they can't. When I see a spectacular play, it's like, how did he get that ball? How did he get to that? How did he hit the ball that hard? I know what my limitations are, and having watched my boys play Little League baseball, I know that it takes a big man to hit one out. That's a spectacular feat, and it's kind of neat to see somebody who can do that.
Were you into sports as a child?
No. I was an artist. I
Tell
grew up
me.
I grew up on a farm
Yeah.
in Benzie County, which is
Right.
west of Interlaken, and I lived on a farm, and I remember, back then we were kind of isolated. There were 2 or 3 families whose kids were about my age, but I was interested in stuff, and I would steal my sister's sci-fi books at a really young age, and I would read Ray Bradbury, and I read a lot when I was a kid, and I think I probably lived inside my head a lot and wrote a lot and was thinking about architecture as a kid and thinking about art as a kid, and really had no outlet for it until
Really?
I was old enough to sing. And singing in church led to speaking in public competitively in high school, and I had some success with that. And then one day a substitute teacher who also happened to manage the local radio station asked me if I wanted to hang out. So that's how I got started in radio. We didn't call it internships then.
Yeah.
It was just hanging out.
Yeah.
And
Come on over.
I did that for a few weeks, and they put me on the schedule. So I've been doing that ever since.
How did you prepare for these speaking engagements in high school?
I did a lot. I was with the Future Farmers of America,
Oh,
and was in a leadership role with them for a couple of years, and I would read, and I would also, back then you could get on cassette famous speeches, and you could get motivational. Zig Ziglar was a big, I was a big fan of Zig Ziglar, and I would listen to his speeches, and ooh, that's a really good line, and I'd write it down, and I had a box, like a recipe box full of index cards with bits on it, and I could assemble a different speech, within a matter of minutes from things that I had written down, things that I had grabbed from a magazine, things that I had heard other people say.
oh, that's good.
It was fun.
Where'd you get the courage to get up there and speak? How'd you get the confidence, like to tell your
yeah,
interns?
I had a very, my vocational agricultural teacher in high school told me when I was preparing for my first public speaking competition as a freshman, people want to hear what you have to say, so go give it to them. And when you focus on the audience wanting something from you, it's not so stressful. You're trying to please them rather than trying to hide behind a podium.
Good for you. That's an amazing direction.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Yes, tell.
The Buddhist monks say that man is like a man in a chariot with the archer behind him. And in order to truly relax and know what you're about, you release the reins and you turn and meet the archer behind you. So if you can relax and release all the tension and fear and anxiety you have about speaking in front of people, it's like playing chess and you know 3-4 moves ahead of time what you're going to do. And when you relax at that level and you start to see the next move you're going to make as a public speaker, it all melts away. All the fear melts away.
Because you know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I know what I'm going to do in advance, and I don't have to concentrate on 5,000 people listening to me. I just concentrate
Are you
on
interested in
being in the
Buddhism?
moment. I've read books. It isn't my belief system, but there's a lot of good wisdom there.
You sound like you take from many places.
I do.
All of us do.
Absolutely.
There is no, I don't know that there's anything new, but there's definitely different combinations of things.
There's a lot to be learned. If I'd had the internet when I was a kid, there's a lot of things to learn in the world.
An opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I want to thank you
Thank
for
you.
being with us today. And it's really interesting to me to know that we all have the same challenges, and that's how to walk through fear into activity. And you heard him say about how he teaches the intern, and you heard him say about the Buddhist. You feel that confidence, but you are also prepared. He was writing down different lines of interest from tapes that when he was preparing for his high school, I guess, debates or high school presentations. Mm-hmm. And you also heard him say something else separate from the hard work. You heard him talk about it isn't work going to work. He loves it. He loves it. And I think the great thing in life is to find a way to love what you do. And if you don't, try and change it. But know that hard work is not to be avoided. It's actually hard play because it's so satisfying, because something is happening as a result of your activity that you value, that you deem important. And I really did like the fact that pace in voice, pacing and tone or pitch are important, because it's not only the voice, it's how we speak to people everywhere, how we conduct ourselves, how we dress ourselves. And so I want you to be conscious of this as you go forward, because you have a chance to live enthusiasm, and you have a chance to make other people enthusiastic. So I hope you have a good week. Please go out and say something kind to someone you know and someone you don't know. Find a way to make the world just a little brighter. Put some enthusiasm with it. And of course, join us next time. It isn't the same if you don't. And I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you and hear your comments when I'm in the supermarket. Bless you all. Thank you.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.